On a cold, gloomy afternoon, billionaire Alexander Carter parked his luxury car at a red light. This business tycoon, renowned for his iron-fisted tactics, was about to roll up his window when, out of the corner of his eye, he noticed a frail, ragged boy standing by the roadside. "Please, sir," came the boy's feeble voice, "buy my drawing. I'm so hungry." The boy stretched out his hand, holding a crumpled piece of paper. Billionaire Alexander Carter was known for his cold-hearted nature and vast business empire. He had never imagined that a single moment could change his life. But when this ragged little boy handed him a drawing of his own mansion, something deep within him stirred. Emotions he had buried long ago. What if this boy knew more than just his house? What if he held the key to a lost chapter of Alexander's past? You'd never guess the twist that follows. This isn't just the story of a begging boy. It's about a secret that would haunt Alexander for the rest of his life. Trust me, you won't guess the ending until you see it. Alexander Carter was the kind of man who inspired both envy and fear. At just 45 years old, he had risen from humble beginnings to become one of the city's wealthiest men. His skyscrapers towered into the clouds, overlooking the city skyline. His name echoed in boardrooms across the country. Yet despite his immense wealth, he had no family, no true friends, and his heart had long grown cold. His life revolved around business, and he thrived in the control of power and money. He often told himself that emotions were for the weak. On that fateful day, Alexander had just attended a high-profile meeting. Everything had gone as planned, and he had closed a major deal that would significantly boost his profits. He had it all. A sprawling mansion in the suburbs, luxury cars, a private jet. The world bowed to him. But as the seasons turned cold and the city's festive lights began to twinkle, an uneasy atmosphere filled the air, a sense of emptiness he couldn't quite articulate. As his sleek black car approached the red light, he barely noticed the figure by the roadside until a faint voice broke his thoughts. "Please, sir, buy my drawing. I'm so hungry." He glanced over and saw a boy, about 7 or 8 years old, wrapped in an oversized, tattered coat. His face was pale, his eyes large and hollow from hunger. In his small hands, he held a piece of paper. Alexander's first instinct was to ignore the boy. He was used to beggars, the poor, those seeking handouts. To him they were all the same. Someone else's burden, someone else's failure. But the boy's gaze stopped him. He rolled down his window and gestured for the child to come closer. "Show me what you've got," Alexander said, his voice carrying its usual coldness. The boy hesitated, then slowly approached the car, holding up the paper. Alexander took it and saw not just a child's simple scribble. Though rough, the drawing was striking. It depicted a grand mansion, eerily familiar. Alexander's hand trembled slightly as his eyes darted over the details. This wasn't just any mansion. It was his mansion. The sprawling garden, the tall windows, the fountain in the courtyard, all meticulously drawn by a child who shouldn't know these things. But what shocked Alexander most wasn't the house. In front of the mansion stood 2 figures, a tall man in a black suit and a small boy clinging tightly to his hand. Alexander's heart jolted, his eyes widening. He realized the man in the drawing was unmistakably himself. But how could this be? How could this begging child know such intimate details of his life and home? Who was this boy? Alexander blinked, unsure how to react. The child looked at him expectantly, waiting for a response. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. His mind was flooded with questions. Was this a scam? A coincidence? His rational side urged him to dismiss it, but his instincts told him otherwise. "How did you learn to draw this?" Alexander finally asked, his voice trembling with tension. The boy looked down, scuffing his shoe against the ground. "I don't know, sir," he said softly. "Sometimes these images just come to my mind." He paused, then added, "My mom always said I had a vivid imagination." "Where's your mom?" Alexander asked. The boy nodded, his eyes filled with sadness. "She passed away last year. Now I don't have any family left, sir. I just want to sell my drawing to buy some food." A strange feeling welled up in Alexander, an emotion he hadn't felt in years. Was it pity? No, it was more than pity. A peculiar sense of connection, as if there was more to this boy's story. He should have driven away, tossed the drawing aside, and continued his life. But something made him stay. He reached into his wallet and pulled out a crisp bill. "Here, this is enough for food." The boy's eyes lit up, but he shook his head. "I can't take your money for nothing, sir. You have to keep the drawing." Alexander stared at the boy for a moment, then placed the drawing on the seat beside him. "All right," he said, handing the boy the bill. A grateful smile spread across the boy's face as he clutched the money tightly. "Thank you, sir. Thank you so much." Before Alexander could say more, the light turned green, and the cars behind him honked impatiently. He drove off, watching the boy fade into the distance in his rearview mirror. But as he sped away, the drawing burned into his mind. It was too strange to ignore, too unforgettable to dismiss. That evening, Alexander sat in his sprawling living room, the drawing placed on the table before him. He couldn't shake the feeling that the boy's drawing was more than a coincidence. This child had captured his life so precisely, and it unnerved him. The more he stared at the drawing, the more vivid its details became. The mansion, the man, the boy. Memories flooded back, ones he had buried deep for years. Alexander's own childhood had been tragic. He grew up in a poor, struggling family, once a hungry child himself. His mother died young, and his father, consumed by grief, turned to alcohol, never recovering. Alexander had fought tooth and nail to escape that life, building his business, empire, and leaving the past behind. But now, looking at this drawing, he couldn't escape the feeling that it was pulling him back to a time he'd tried so hard to forget. Over the next few days, Alexander couldn't focus. The boy's drawing consumed his thoughts. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the mansion, the man, and the boy. He knew he had to find that child again, to understand the strange connection he felt. But the city was vast, and finding a beggar boy in its crowd seemed impossible. Days turned into weeks, yet the boy lingered in his mind. Alexander's business began to suffer, his obsession growing. Colleagues noticed his change. He became distracted, anxious, emotionally erratic. He stopped attending meetings, and rumors began to spread. Then, one afternoon, as Alexander left his office, he saw him, the same boy, standing at the same street corner where they first met. This time he didn't hesitate. He parked his car and walked toward the boy. "It's you," Alexander said, crouching down to meet the child's eyes. "I need to talk to you." The boy looked up, surprised, but not afraid. "Sir, is something wrong?" Alexander took a deep breath. "That drawing you gave me. How did you know? How did you know about the mansion, the man, and me?" The boy looked confused. "I don't know, sir," he said. "I told you. These images just come to me sometimes. I don't know why." Alexander's heart pounded. There had to be more to this. "What's your name?" The boy hesitated. "Ethan," he said softly. "Ethan. Ethan." Alexander repeated, his voice gentle. "Do you have a place to go? Any family?" Ethan shook his head. "No, sir. I've been on my own for a while." Without thinking, Alexander made a decision that shocked even himself. "Come with me," he said. Ethan's eyes widened in surprise. "Where, sir?" "To my home. I think there's some connection between us, and I need to figure out why." When Alexander brought Ethan to his mansion, his staff was stunned. In all their years working for him, they had never seen him show such kindness, let alone to a street urchin. But Alexander sensed something deeper at play, beyond mere charity. He had to understand this boy and his strange ability. As days passed and Ethan settled into Alexander's home, more peculiar things emerged. The boy was drawn to certain rooms in the mansion, rooms even Alexander rarely entered. Ethan would stare at walls or old furniture as if they held hidden secrets. Then one evening, Ethan asked an unexpected question. "Sir," he began hesitantly, "do you know about the boy who used to live here?" Alexander froze. No boy had lived in this mansion for years. How could Ethan know? "What boy?" Alexander asked, his voice tight. "The boy who used to play in the garden," Ethan said, his gaze distant, as if recalling a memory. He was happy here until he wasn't. Alexander's mind reeled. There had been a boy, his own son, from a long-forgotten past. But it was impossible. His son had died in a tragic accident when he was just a child. No one knew about it. Alexander had buried that part of his life, never mentioning it even to those closest to him. The pain was too great. But Ethan's words brought it all rushing back. Grief, loss, guilt. He had buried those emotions, focusing solely on building his empire to escape the pain. Yet now, it seemed the past had returned through this child who shouldn't know these things. Alexander could no longer deny the truth. Ethan's uncanny knowledge of the mansion, his connection to the boy in the drawing, it was undeniable. He took Ethan's hand and led him to the old nursery, a room untouched since his son's death. As they entered, Ethan's eyes widened, a gentle smile crossing his face. "This was his room," he said softly, as if speaking to someone unseen. "He used to sit by the window, waiting for you to come home." Alexander's breath caught. During his son's brief life, he had often been absent, consumed by work, and his pursuit of wealth. He had thought there would be more time, but fate had been cruel. Tears welled in Alexander's eyes. He knelt beside Ethan. "How do you know this?" he asked, his voice trembling. Ethan looked at him with those unforgettable eyes. "I don't know, sir. I just feel it." In that moment, Alexander understood. Ethan wasn't an ordinary child. He was a messenger, a reminder of his lost son and the love he had abandoned in his pursuit of wealth. The boy in the drawing wasn't a random figure. It was his son, reaching out through Ethan from another world. In the weeks that followed, Alexander's life changed in ways he never imagined. He adopted Ethan, giving the boy a home and family he had never known. But more than that, Alexander rediscovered something he had lost. His heart. The cold mansion that once symbolized his wealth became a home filled with laughter and love. Ethan's presence healed the wounds Alexander had carried for so long. In the end, it wasn't the boy's drawing that changed Alexander's life, but the love he rediscovered through this child who gave him a new beginning. Though the past was painful, it found a way to reconcile with the present. The once cold and ruthless billionaire Alexander learned that true wealth isn't found in money or power, but in the deep bonds we forge with others and the genuine care we show for those around us.